phases of this business automation platform. So first is the discover and automate and operate. So lately, like very recently, UiPath come up with a very simplified version. Earlier we used to have 4 or 5 different sections, but it is now simplified into just 3 sections. You need to discover, need to understand what we are going to automate, and then we are going to find out how we are going to automate, and to automate itself all the tasks that is identified. And finally, it is the operations. We operate all the automations. We operate in a secured environment and give you the much needed result, right? So just a little bit more into what is discover. So it is the first phase or the initial phase of the UiPath platform, right? So here what the business does is they actually identify and prioritize the business processes. There are a lot of manual and repeated works in any businesses, but the business itself want to identify which is more important, which is easy to automate first. So they will select those kind of processes first, and they will then analyzing that existing workflows, and this identify the repetitive and time consuming task, right? Then they use the tools for analyzing and identifying the automation more in depth. So we use process mining, task mining, communication mining, and idea capture and management. So these are various AI tools that we use in the discover phase. This is just to identify the automation. At this point, the actual automation is not yet started. This is only to identify what is the best business process that can be automated. So once we identified the process that we want to automate, now we go into the automate phase. So where we have the most exciting tool in right now, that is the best tool, I would say, which is called the UiPath Studio itself. The UiPath Studio, we call this as a trio: the studio, the orchestrator, and the robot. So that plays a key and vital role to automate our business processes. So we build automation, we test automation, we deploy software robots that can automate identified business processes, right? So our UiPath platform, it provides all these tools to do that. It is very easy to operate in the UiPath Studio. Many of you might already know that we are using the drag and drop. It's a low code platform. We just drag and drop workflows. We can do recording, and we can do the screen scraping capabilities, right? And so many much advanced technologies we have in the background. So using this technology, we can capture the data input. At the same time, it can integrate with multiple applications such as ERP, CRM, HCM, and SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, and you name whatever application that you have in your environment. We would be able to automate the same as well, mainly to accelerate the business process, to automate your business process that is highly manual and time consuming, and it is a tedious process. We just want to get away from all the robotic kind of work. So we need to automate your business process to excel, right? So the next topic is the operate. So what operate essentially means is that it involves in managing, monitoring, and optimizing the performance of the software robot that are in production. So we build the robots and put it into the production. So the UiPath platform itself provide various features to help the business in this phase, right? So it is kind of a centralized management and governance, and we can real time monitor that what the robot is actually doing, and also we can see the analytics, and also we can provide the 24/7 the support and maintenance, because we have orchestrator, right? Also the platform itself, it includes the artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities, so just to enable and learn the process even more, even to perform in much higher level of accuracy and efficiency. So by now you could have understood that what topic we are going to discuss in more detail, even though we have a lot of machine learning and AI capabilities. So this topic is intelligent document processing, or the document understanding is where we will go in detail. So it's just very simple. So we have our processes as the input, which we discover, and we automate the core, all the core business process, including all the applications, as I told. And finally, it is the people, right? So the people are the stakeholder, are the one who is going to consume this automation, and they are going to give you more productivity to the business. So all this together simplified, we call this as simply the UiPath business automation platform. right? So document processing, challenges and solutions. Like there is no business in this world without documents, right? So document processing itself is a core element of RPA, mainly because it enables the business to do the actual business itself, and they need to process documents, right? Documents such as unstructured data. They may process like invoices, pay slips, receipts, and forms. What else? There are so many more forms and data there, like data forms and a lot of documents involved in a business, right? So with this business processing or this document processing, the business can extract the relevant information. So we don't want to process all the information in the document. We just want focused on only specific information. So we want to extract only the relevant data from these documents, and we want to validate this information, and we want to integrate with all the other applications, right? Just extract the value from a document and put it into different applications like SAP or Salesforce, whatever it is. So we want to give us an input to do the actual business process, right? And UiPath easily integrates with all the applications, as you know. So this is without any human interventions. It happens automatically, right? So for example, a business that receives hundreds of invoices each day, right? So they can use this document processing. Not only invoices, it can be any document. They are receiving on daily basis multiple documents in the email. So they can use this document processing to automatically extract the data, such as the invoice number, the date, the amount, and the validate all the information, and then they can put it into the actual systems. So what is the main use? So this process can save business a significant time actually the time and resources, and they can reduce the error rate. So the errors can be reduced, and finally it improve the overall efficiency of the business, right? So that is there are there is no company in the world that does not deal with the documents, right? So any process involves repetitive process. Put together, that is why we need the document processing. It is a core, and definitely we need this kind of automation mainly to improve the process. So recently the reports says that from IDC and Everest Group, so after you implement using this UiPath document understanding, so there is a 35% of cost reduction compared to manual document processing, right? And it's an overwhelming 52% of decrease in errors that mitigates the risk of work and related losses. And also there is 17% reduction in time employees spend on document processing, and 40% increase in employee productivity and customer satisfaction. See, always that benefits does not mean there is only the cost saving and the time saving, right? So the employee satisfaction and the customer satisfaction, those are also the benefit. There are a lot of uninformed benefits in this automation. So the people who are happy doing their work is the most productive people in the world. So doing this automation gives them the best satisfaction. And as a person, I have personally experienced how the customer reacts in terms of getting this kind of benefits. It's not just about money and cost and the time. There is many more in this in this implementations, right? So what can be the challenge? There are so many challenges available because as a manually they have to extract, interpret. So every time this document comes in various formats. Sometimes it is of very good readability, sometimes it cannot be readed. So at that time they need to manually extract and enter somewhere. And there are variety types of documents and quality, right? Because the scanning itself they can do in 100 dpi or 300 dpi, and sometimes it's not a good scanner or not a good device they are using to scan. So there are various parameters for the providing this data input, right? So because of that the quality is reduced. And it is most expensive and time consuming task, mainly dealing with the documents. And when you are going through that same kind of document again and again and again, so we are just humans, right? We are not robots. Definitely we always make mistakes, and there are high chance of human error. And because of that error we need to do something else again, rework, and there is a lot of loss of time and money and everything. And there is also there is no end-to-end solution so far in the market. So every time there is some manual intervention required. So these are all the benefits. So when we put the UiPath document understanding in place, so all this can be converted to the solution. So we can assign this to a robot for any manual work so that it can be automated, because we have artificial intelligence to do all these things, right? So any variety of documents, from the quality wise or the volume wise or the document structure wise, everything we got a solution to capture, the extract, scan, classify, everything we got. We can do all those things. And cost and so manual is cost and time consuming. Automation, this is the same thing, is the benefit. It's efficiency, right? And it is more fast and accurate, and it is an end-to-end solution. It's not that customized solution, it's actually an end-to-end solution. Right from you receive an email or through any applications, it's just do the process end-to-end. But there are certain manual processes which I will give you in a minute. Also Sean will go through in detail how those manual things can be interpreted. So it is a combination of both. It is a RPA platform itself, and we have artificial intelligence, and we have document understanding, which is the document processing is a process. So all together put into place, it is the document understanding. So it is a combination, or it is an ability to extract and interpret information, and from wide range of documents, right? So it is an intersection of document processing, artificial intelligence, and robotic process automation. So you may ask whether it is a OCR, which is optical character recognition. No, it is not an OCR. Or is it a computer vision? No, it is not a computer vision, but it is the combinations of everything, right? So on introducing UiPath document understanding, so there are a lot of varying templates that we may get. So that those are the challenges. And sometimes the signatures and the checkboxes within the document, sometimes the documents is slightly skewed and or various different formats, and very low quality scanned documents, right? So all this can be processed. Believe it or not, it can be processed with more accuracy, more than 80 to 90% of accuracy. We will be able to do that, right? So it's an intelligent document process, because every time we train the robots. So first time we make the solution and make train the robots. So the main advantage is the scalability. So once you are trained one robot, all the 100 robots you involved can do the same kind of work. So it is highly scalable, and you can assign to any number of machines and tasks. So it processes intelligently, and it is highly flexible and very accurate and efficient, right? So all are advantages only in this document understanding. So now let the robot take on the document process routine, which means all the work that you done in a document processing manually in the past, now we assign to a robot, and it is highly scalable. So initially it will be not that much accurate, but on the continuous training in a secured environment, then it becomes more accurate, so that only very less manual efforts are put. So what company use this in the world to process the documents? Almost all the companies in the world, right? So every organization has document processing. Every business has it. And these are the different business processes in the healthcare sector, in the medical bills, health records, drug prescriptions, right? And the public sector, in the government sector, almost everything, I would say. It's not only the immigration, school, and passport management, but it is also all the government organizations, or any legal activities, or anything in the government. All are document based. So there are many more in the public sector as well. So BFSA, everybody know that banking and financial services and insurance has lot of processes, like right from the onboarding to the claims process. There are n number of business processes included, and we can do that. And in the shipping, logistics, and travel, and everywhere, all the business has it. So this is just a snapshot, but there are even more. Okay, so that is just a high level, but I hand over to Sean for more actions on the document understanding. I hope you are okay with that. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Raj. Thanks for giving us the overview of the uh, UiPath Business Automation Platform, as well as document understanding. I'm not able to share my screen. Can you? So yeah, I think now it should be okay. Entire screen, screen two. Yeah. Do kindly let me know if you're able to see. Yep, I'm able to see my screen as well. So should be okay. So before we dive into the, I wanted to talk about the product adoption or the consulting approach, or when you're actually trying to leverage document understanding. Because of course, as an end user, or let's say as a systems integrator, you have to identify how you're actually going to tackle this. Um, as Raj mentioned earlier, document understanding is a combination of OCR and machine learning, and of course RPA. UiPath considers document understanding as an intelligent form of let's say process automation, or process understanding, which actually means that we're actually doing RPA at the same time we're actually doing, sorry about that. Yeah, we're doing RPA at the same time you leveraging on machine learning model to be able to capture this information and then perform this document processing. So let's say maybe if we want to extract information initially, for the robot to be so, or if you want to get the document, send this document to a specific uh, uh, system, and then submit this document to document understanding, we will be doing RPA on that one. So we're gathering the documents from external sources, for example, and then we leverage on DU, or document understanding, to be able to digitize this document, classify, extract the information, and export it to become a usable uh, data that we can maybe enter into another system, and so on. So, RPA plus document understanding, which is a combination of OCR and ML, uh, is actually called intelligent document processing. And let's talk about the framework. So I'm going to actually show you guys the framework itself in UiPath portal. But I would like to highlight uh, what parts are there within the framework itself. The very first part that we do is actually the taxonomy. This is where we design, let's say, or identify, let's say, which type of documents we would want to be able, we would want document understanding to read, at the same time which fields we are actually going to capture, extract, or train the model to actually look for. After we've created a taxonomy, we will be passing the document to the digitization stage, where we're actually getting the document object model, the document text, and others, the scanned document. So this is where we actually pass the document. So the digitalization phase is very vital. It's very important. It's a mandatory part. After we've passed it to the digitization stage, and that is where we pass it to the classification station. Or, however, I'd like to highlight that classification is not a mandatory step. So typically, this is used if you have multiple document types. So if you have, let's say, an invoice, if you have bill of lading, if you have purchase order, if you have passports, and so on, this is where classification is definitely becoming mandatory. However, let's say if we have one project which will be leveraging only on invoices only, then practically you can skip this step. You don't need to leverage on it. Um, in terms of the framework, it's already built in. Uh, you can actually just keep it there. So, but basically, the classification allows the robot to identify which type of document, or document understand. The classification allows document understanding to know what type of document you have provided. Uh, some questions would come wherein is the classification, let's say, what if I have multiple documents? Good thing is the classification also separates this documents as well. So let's say if you have in one PDF file, you have an invoice, you have a purchase order, you have a passport. It's smart enough. The intelligent keyword classifier is smart enough to separate and segregate those files, which I'll be showing to you also in the demo later. So there will be instances that it might not have, or it might not achieve the highest confidence score immediately. So that is where validation comes in, where humans would come in, validate the classified document, and then there will be retraining as well. So it's automatic retraining that can be done. So after you pass the classification stage, that is where you extract this information. Of course, whatever the document was classified, that is what document understanding would expect the fields to be. So if the classification is incorrect, then whatever would be extracted might not be correct also. So extraction is basically where you're trying to get the uh, data that you're interested in based on whatever taxonomy you have created. And from there, if let's say the confidence score has passed based on what you've provided, then it can actually go to the straight through processing or post processing also, or it can actually go to a validation. So take note that you can also customize the validation that you would want to put in. You can and then from there, whatever validations you've provided, it will be followed accordingly with using RPA. And then either you can retrain the model can be retrained and the data can be exported. This is just a high level of how the framework looks like. With document under different types of documents, it can be structured documents, semi-structured, or unstructured at all. So structured documents are typically those things that do not change. Basically, it's a form. It's a form type where you actually have a standard layout. And there are different extraction methods available for you. There's a form extractor which actually relies on rules and templates. So this is something that you need to create using, let's say, uh, document understanding activities. And then there's also intelligent form extractors, which allows you to detect signature, detect handwriting, and so on. For semi-structured documents, you leverage on regex and also machine learning extractor, which is typically the most common extractor used in document understanding projects. So machine learning extractor is typically the one that you actually leverage on most of the time. When document understanding was released, it was heavily used mostly on invoices and receipts only. But later on, I'll show you that there are a lot of machine learning models available already. These machine learning models are actually ready for you to use and also ready for you to retrain. The reason I'm saying ready for you to retrain is um, there would be instances that the machine learning model might require additional fields or additional things that is not available in your document. So you can actually retrain the model to provide or to add those fields as well. Unstructured document rely uh, on regex and machine learning extractor mostly. So regex is typically used if you want to extract fields based on a certain, let's say, customization based on certain keywords or not, or based on certain format or how it was written. So basically, these types of documents can be leveraged on with document understanding. Of course, the unstructured ones becomes a lot more complex. Like I believe there was a question earlier uh, for research papers and so on, because I consider that as an unstructured document. So when we are actually using document understanding, we have this scroll, walk, and run. So the very first step for you to do is to provide a proof of concept. And you can leverage on out of the box models that I'm actually going to show you. And you actually be able to start your proof of concept as well. So once you've proven that it works, then that is where you can actually leverage on doing a pilot. And with this pilot, you can actually create custom models out of those simple out of the box models, which you can train as well. You get a number of documents, hundreds of documents. And of course, you need to know more about the product or the project itself, what are the actual requirements, and so on. And of course, running is basically the full implementation with the retraining, leveraging document understanding with RPA itself. So yeah, so basically, if you would want to leverage a document understanding within the program, you need to define your objective. You need to understand the structure, resources behind this structure, and of course the governance and compliance of, because you will actually have a robot to be working with you on these documents. Automation life cycle is practically the same as a typical development life cycle. You identify, you design, you develop, you test, you deploy, and you run the process. Of course, it's always going to you're going to leverage on the feedback loop. It's important to get some feedback to be able to to make whatever, let's say, pilot project you do did better. Enough of the theoretical things. I actually wanted to show you immediately how document understanding looks like in terms of, let's say, the actual product. Um, so what you are seeing now is the UiPath Studio. And in UiPath Studio, you actually have a lot of, let's say, templates made available for you. So after this webinar, we are actually hoping that uh, you should be able to know how to set up your document understanding process, whether you would just want to play with it on your own, or let's say you have a specific POC or a proof of concept, or you want to demo something to your customer. We are actually hoping that you will be able to do it afterwards. The very first step that you would be taking would actually be to leverage on the document understanding process. So it's basically a template that you can use. For the interest of time, I've already opened it. This is also a working demo from my side. But it's practically the same as what you have when you open this document understanding process. And take note, the profile will be for UiPath Studio and not UiPath Studio X. So when you open the document understanding process, what you will realize would be it has some dependencies that are automatically included. And it would be intelligent OCR activities. You will have UI automation, document understanding activities, and so on. I'd like you to focus project folder itself, where you're actually able to see data, data folder. In this framework itself, you also have example documents that you would be able to read. Yeah, so these are just sample documents, certificate of filing, invoice, W-9 form, and receipts. This would be sample documents that are already embedded in this document understanding framework. And it's also trained to do that. Exports mainly would be the outcome or the output when you run the 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 finished product. You also have certain folders for training of specific machine learning models such as invoices, receipts. Uh, in under document processing, these are actually the JSON files that you would be using for classifier. So the intelligent keyword classifier JSON, and the framework mainly includes all of the SAML files that are included within the document understanding framework. So one thing I'd like to highlight also is when we talk about document understanding framework, it's not just one sequence. Basically, you have a lot of smaller components that has been created for you to leverage on, so that you can easily and seamlessly move from one type of workflow to another, whether you would want to use attended automation or you would want to use action center for human in the loop or unattended process. So these are some of the sample files, and we'll hopefully be able to go through it, all of it, in this session. um, and then, yeah, plus there's a user guide that you can actually follow to be able to do it also. Two major product parts of this document understanding project would be the main action center and main attended workflow. I'm going to open them both, and what you will notice, it's actually practically the same. The key difference is how you run it, how it functions, and certain settings that you can leverage on. Main attended workflow is actually running together with the user. So basically, you don't have an unattended robot running at the back, or you don't have a robot running unattended mode. You have a bot that will actually run the process, and then it will actually work side by side with the human for you, let's say, for you to classify certain documents or identify some extracted information. Key considerations with main attended is you should actually set the support persistence into no. So you should turn that off, and then it actually asks the human to, let's say, if you have not provided, let's say, a target file, it will actually ask you to provide the target file. So a dialog box will come out, and then you're actually able to pinpoint what file you would want to use. I'll leverage on the main action center. So basically, this is for the unattended automation or unattended part, and with this one, this is where you actually turn on the persistence support persistence. Okay, so now that we are at the framework, uh, your process will actually start at reading of the configuration file. So what is the configuration file? This is actually where you put in a lot of the configurations that you would be using within your document understanding project. It can and this is pre-filled by default. So if you open the framework itself, and if you open the config file, most of the values you are going to see here are already pre-filled. One of the things that I filled up myself would be, let's say, this storage bucket name, the client demo path, document understanding queue name, and document understanding queue path, as well as the API key. So this one I actually added. However, you can put it, sometimes you can put it in the assets as well. So, but basically, this has been pre-filled for you to leverage on, and you can actually use this already um, after the minor change that you actually do. I'm going to show also later the UiPath orchestrator where we actually put this. But for now, let's just consider that this is the config file. And so config reading of the config file is also a separate workflow. And basically, what this does is it actually instantiates what we call a config dictionary that you're actually passing across the whole workflow itself. And what we are trying to do is we're actually asking the robot to, or asking RPA part to read the Excel files based on the in config file, and the sheets that we are actually going to run through. It's actually for each. So we have a lot of sheets there that we are running through, and we are actually trying to get the key value pair. So what you would notice here is the arguments in the config sheet actually tells what uh, what sheets we actually want to read. So we were passing in an array of strings to be able to do that. So we have settings, constants, invoice processing, and so on. Let me just show you quickly again. Mm. So yeah, so these are the sheets that we are actually passing. And you don't need to worry about this because this has already been incorporated. I just wanted to highlight to you that this is what it is doing. Mm. So after the reading of the config, you're actually going to initialize the process. So initializing the process is basically asking the robot to load all of the further settings, and this is where you load the taxonomy. If you can remember the PowerPoint slide that I showed, the very first step is the taxonomy. And again, to mention, taxonomy is basically where we actually identify, let's say, the document types. Where we classify the document type. At the same time, this is where we put in the fields, or we specify the fields of that document. So whether you have a receipt, you have an invoice, that this is where it is being done. So once you've done this, and if you use that activity, you're actually passing through a taxonomy variable that you're actually going to use within the process itself. Take note also the type of document or type of field that you have. So let's say if you know it's a number, you can either set it as a string or a number and so on. But take note that sometimes numbers would have dash or open parentheses and close parentheses. So that's why you have to consider whether it's just a text and so on. So you see, you also have receipts, expense type, currency, because you have those dollar signs. And then if you have, let's say, itemized, meaning you have a table, so you consider this as an item where you're actually able to put that also here. That's just a quick summary of the taxonomy manager. So basically, you load the taxonomy that you have created, and then you read the assets. So assets uh, are are somehow variables that you store in the UiPath orchestrator for you to be able to make some changes, and not where you don't need to do the changes exactly in the workflow itself. So you're actually going to loop through the assets, get the value from the orchestrator itself, and this is what you're doing in the initialization stage. Of course, you're free to add custom initialization as well. So that's where init and config does. So also in the initialization, we're also identifying whether in the config, we're also identifying whether we are using queues or not. Let's focus on the part where we are using queues. So if you identify, or if the bot identifies that you're using a queue, you're going to get this queue from a transaction item within the queue itself. Where the bot will actually try to look at the orchestrator folder path, orchestrator queue name. So take note, the config file, you've also placed that there earlier, the values. And then it will actually try to identify whether you have a transaction item or not. So if you have a transaction item or a value, and that is where it will go directly to the digitization stage and perform then the rest of the process. Where else, if you don't have any transaction, it will actually end the process. Um, Assuming you don't have queues, then you're actually going to, uh, if you're not using queues, you're actually going to, the bot is trying to look for if you have a target file. And that is where we check also if the data is found. So hopefully we're not going too fast. And then we go to the digitized stage. So digitized stage is also one of the key important part, because of course you're leveraging on OCR here. And this is an activity, the digitized document activity is actually just asking for a document file folder path. And then it will also ask you to pass on some document OCRs, so OCR activities. So if you look at the activities available, uh, you're not just stuck with the UiPath document OCR, but you actually have other OCR activities available for you. Key consideration is that uh, Tesseract and I hope I'm right here. Tesseract and Assure, for example, they don't rotate they don't rotate let's say the files, or let's say if it's skewed, they don't do that. So UiPath document understanding does that, or is capable of doing that already. So by default, this is free. If you have what we call the AI units or the document understanding pages, this is actually free for you to use. um, um, so yes, and by default it's a UiPath product, so I would use this as well initially. So after the digitization of the document, you actually have an output of document object model and document text, which will be passed on to the classification stage. As I mentioned earlier, the classification stage is basically a not mandatory stage. If you have a standard invoice only, or if you know that your documents that would be coming in are invoices, then you don't need to are all invoices, and no, you don't have other documents, then by any means you can actually remove the classification stage. Take note also that with the digitize hold on, with the digitize output that you have passed, use this so some of those outputs into the input of the classify. And this is where we actually use the classified document scope. So the classification document scope actually identifies the documents that you have, or classifies the documents that you have. And whatever you have here, what you will notice is it is also the document types that you actually have on the taxonomy manager. So I hope you can link it accordingly. And whenever we would like to train a machine learning classifier, we will always be asked to provide a specific file. So if you don't have something yet, you can just put in a JSON file, any JSON file that you like. Typically, you create a blank JSON file and you put it there, so that you will have the learnings available. So let's say, for example, here I have a learning file already. Um, what you would notice is it is trained, and by default, it has been trained by UiPath already on these documents. So let's say, assuming we're going to add one more, uh, in the taxonomy manager, we'll be putting in a document, and then it will actually show here start training. And the start training will actually ask you to select, let's say, documents. It will ask you whether you would want to use what OCR engine you'd like to use. And yeah, so by the way, it supports different types of languages as well. And then you can start training. And what you will notice here, it's actually getting a word vector out of those documents. So basically, if you put in some document, you're passing in a word vector that what the robot should, or document understanding should look for, and leverage on. So that is where it actually classifies. Under configure classifier, this is where you're also identifying which type of document should be considered. So if you untick this, then the bot or document understanding will not consider receipts. If you untick invoice, then it will not consider invoice, and so on. So you can also add multiple classifiers. So I wanted to show you this. So hold on, sorry, what's happening to my screen? Yeah. Okay, so you can also add in multiple classifiers. So you're not just stuck with one. So I'm just showing this to. For example, you have multiple classifiers. You can also put in another type of classifier, and so on. And when you do this in the configure classifier, you actually have this. So I'll just delete this quickly and show you that. So this minimum confidence is basically the threshold that the bot will actually show you. So anything, it will actually not show you the outcome or the output in the list of classified documents. So it's very important also to take note of that. So I haven't made any changes. So that is where you actually classify. And you might have considered why the classification result is an array. There would be instances that you actually have multiple documents in one PDF. So if you have multiple documents, you'll have multiple classification results. So that is why it's an array. So going further down the road, after you classified, you can also introduce a classification rules check. So this is also included by default. This is where, so in the config file, there's also a question there whether you'd like to always validate the classification. If you always validate, then it will always go to the validation station for you to classify. If you're confident enough already, you can turn that off. And if you have further classification rules, you can put it in the classification business rules. Just close this so that we have a screen. All right. Now, assuming the classification failed, so this means that you're actually going to have to validate. You're going to do it on your own. You actually have another stage here called validate and train classifier. So this is where you actually leverage on long-running workflows. So where you're actually having, let's say, certain catalogs on long-running workflows, and this is actually also showing the classification station or the pop-up or the validation station that we are seeing. So this part is actually the one doing that, where you're also leveraging on the storage bucket. So this is where you save the files initially, and then if you notice earlier in the config file, you have bucket name and storage bucket path, and folder path, and so on. So this is where you're actually getting that. One of the key things is wait for document classification action and resume. So this means that um, it's the bot is actually or uh, that file is actually put into suspended state until the person or the human acts upon this. So after the human or acts upon it, then that is where it will actually resume and ask the robot to continue the process. And that would be happening at the back end automatically, by the way. Um, After this, we of course, after you've classified, you have the extraction stage where you're actually asking the robot to extract certain informations. Earlier, I was telling you that you have you have ranks extractors, form extractors, receipts, invoices, and so on. So, do you remember the taxonomy manager earlier? So the taxonomy manager also, and then you've put in certain fields, right? So besides that, so the taxonomy manager is actually uh, going to have this value. So for example, in your ML model, you have receipts and so on, receipt name. From the taxonomy manager itself, you're actually going to um, populate what is the same. So in invoices, you have, it's a bit of lag from there. But yeah, so if you're using this one, you also have the list of fields that you would like to extract. I'm very conscious of time, so I'm trying to make it a little bit quicker. But feel free to let us know if you want to have further discussions on this or further webinars on this, where we can actually run you through from training the model and creating the actual model itself. We can definitely do that. Just let us know, and then we can set up another session on that. So after you've done the extraction, similarly, you also have the validate and train extractor. So if you need to further validate and identify whether the extraction is according to the confidence that you have considered, then yeah, this is where you'll also have create document data validation action, which will show up the validation station also, and then you have also here the wait for document data validation action and issue, similar to what I was mentioning earlier. One thing I was not able to highlight is you can retrain the classifiers or the extractors. So here you also have a train extractor where if you pass it to the train extractor scope stage, you're actually able to retrain the machine learning model that you used. Take note also here, this is also the same for the extraction scope. You also have here the receipt training folder. You also have here the dataset endpoints and so on. Mm, these endpoints would actually point to the machine learning model that you are using. With UiPath, you're able to leverage on uh, pre-built machine learning models, as I mentioned earlier. Hold on, let me just quickly show this. So you see here that the API key in config API key. Um, if we actually go there in the config file, you have the endpoints that are available. So what it is doing, it's actually getting the endpoints from the config file to be able to leverage on the existing model. Take note that all of these existing models uh, previously was pointing out to Europe. So the documents that you are going to use, you just if you would want to maintain that, let's say, the information and so on would be retained in a specific region, then you can actually train the classifier or create a machine learning model classifier in the automation cloud. Um, I can quickly show that also in a bit, but basically this is for the extractor. And then key thing to note would be when you're after you validated, right? So you can export. So you can also do extraction rules check. Sorry, extraction rules check allows you to perform post processing, post extraction processing, whether you want to do further invoice post processing or further checks on receipts or further business rules. You can do it here. You can just amend this post-processing workflow, and you'll be able to do that. So, and then export. So exporting is, of course, the one of the final stages for before we actually put this data to good use. For example, if you want to enter this data into a different system, you want to export the data set, you want to export a CSV file, an Excel file, or a JSON file. This is where the magic is being done. Otherwise, so you're actually able to, yeah, the ending of the process. Okay, let's before I run it, or I actually run it now. I actually run one process early. So you also can create a dispatcher workflow that will pass the data into the queue. And after you've passed the dispatcher workflow, it will actually trigger your uh, your process as well. So this can run unattended. This can run attended. So mine is actually running at the back end, and with just one robot, for example, you'll be able to see it running there. In my orchestrator, I actually have a workspace here where I also created the queue earlier, the assets that I'm using, and of course I published the project, so you'll be able to see it there. Where you do it, or where you do the human in the loop part in in document understanding, is in actually have actions here, or the type of request that you need to do. So if you have pending actions, you need to assign it to yourself, for example, or another individual. So you also have an assign. This is what we just run recently. I was mentioning in the class, if so first you need to assign it to someone or yourself within the organization, and then it will be put to pending. After that, you're able to identify the document type, whether it's a certificate of filing, invoice, W-94, or receipt. Assuming that this is okay, sorry, pending. So you just save it. You confirm that it is correct. The bot will continue to run at the back end for a while, and then you'll actually be shown the extraction. So this bot is designed to go through extraction step also, and it will actually show you in terms of validation station. So you see here, this is the validation station. I'm just going to assign it to myself, and after that you can validate further documents. So yeah, so take note of the confidence score. You have a OC extraction confidence. The document type earlier was 100%. The file number, for example, we're getting the date. The date is correct, and effective date is practically the same. So assuming you don't want human in the loop, this can be processed straight through. Um, there would be documents that are actually forms, and considering document understanding and is leveraging an OCR, there would be instances that you're actually able to get the correct fully. There would be instances that you would be missing certain values. So here, for example, we have the name, which is correct. Individual is checked. It's a leverages Boolean value, um, and the others are actually considered as no. Uh, the address is we able to get correctly. Um, New York. However, you will notice that this one is actually missing. So this one is missing certain fields, certain values. So this is where you would actually want to, let's say, maybe further retrain the model, or maybe you just as it goes on, the bot also learns further. So it's able to detect a signature is there. It's not take note that it's not able to detect which signature it is. It's able to detect the signature is available. So this is one of the key considerations as well when doing a document understanding project. So yeah, assuming that is fine, yeah, we submit it, and then we also have, let's say, a receipt. I'm just going quickly. I understand that we are running past the hour. Um, yeah, so you're actually able to do so. So here you can also do further processing as to, let's say, if the total line amount is correct, multiplied by the quantity and so on. So you can do that in the post processing section of the document understanding framework. Um, and then yeah, actually you can do a lot more. But the framework is ready for you. You just leverage on it. There's also a module that you can use, or a PDF file that you can leverage on. So yeah, so this is the line items, and then all of these things you have to define in your taxonomy manager. I just wanted to highlight that. And yeah, so practically this is how it looks like, how it should work. I was mentioning earlier about data, where you're actually able to put it and so on. So assuming that let's say your the data to reside in the specific region only. Mm, this is where you can actually hold on. Go to AI Center, and this is whenever you have, let's say, machine learning models, right? So I was mentioning there are a lot of out of the box machine learning models available within UiPath. So you can actually publish this as an ML skill. So you just create ML package out of this one, and then go to ML skills, and then choose the package that you published. It's very easy. You don't need to retrain anything and so on. If you have certain licenses, um, you can do this, and then you will have an endpoint available for you to leverage on your own. And so I don't have specific robots, but what happens is instead of using this one, you'll be able to have an ML skill available here. So that is where you can actually make it reside on a certain region based on your tenants. Um, I think that should be it. Uh, I hope you guys learned something from us today. And let me just stop sharing here. Yeah, let me just stop sharing and maybe open the floor for some questions. Mm, we definitely would be happy to have to give send the recording. It should be available because we've clicked on recording. Um, and yeah, we're definitely happy to have a deeper dive into this one. We can definitely schedule it. Uh, yeah, I think that should be all for me. I'm considering we're already 4 minutes past the hour. Um,
Yeah, thank you very much, Sean. It's really interesting to see everything in action. Of questions, and we addressed most of them. So, are you able to share your screen for the questions?
oh yeah, yes, sure. Hmm. I didn't see the questions earlier. Sorry. Uh, thanks for the questions. Uh, so yeah, you'll be able to see the document stage based on the categories that you actually created in the taxonomy manager.
Yeah, Sean, your screen is like I think you're sharing a wrong screen.
Which one should I'm sharing the other one earlier.
The presentation, right?
Oh no, so I was actually sharing the page. The present in the presentation is actually practically all done. So the PPT,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Now, yeah, we are able to see now. It's Q&A.
Mhm.
Can we move to the next screen?
Mm. So that is a
Okay, where is the question? So, do you have a Q&A for anything or?
I mean, their questions or our mentee questions.
Right, right. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't play it considering we're on top of the hour.
All right.
Yeah, so but yeah, so we can definitely do this. I was just looking at the questions that were raised in the session, so that's why.
Okay.
Yes. So for Action Center, it's actually a different license, and but it's actually included on certain products. So if you have robots, typically it will include a license for the Action Center. Um, but there are Action Center user licenses that you would actually need if you need more team members to actually use it or leverage on it.
Yeah, it depends on number of the team members joining.
Mhm. That's right. So do connect with us on LinkedIn. But for those who would be who's still available, feel free to join. We just have a four questions here, um, just to so for those interested, we can yeah we have this. Just go to www.menti.com and enter the code. So we already have one. We have three people joining. So let's start in the next 30 seconds. Okay. So basically, you have to look at the screen and at the same time look at your phone. You can extract data from rotated or skewed documents. Is that true or false? All right. Everyone is voted. Hopefully, yeah, everyone got it correctly. And the winner is for this round is Yash. That's great. Next question. OCR is the same as document understanding. So earlier we mentioned that OCR is. Uh, let's see. Wow, thank you so much. Everyone is listening, Raj. So take note, this is the fastest person to click and at the same time the correct answer. It's a very tight game.
Happy, happy, happy.
Who is hula hoop? This is a UiPath automation cloud service where human in the loop is done. I believe we also tackle this one. Is it orchestrator, action center, data service, or AI center? Wow.
Well done.
Yes. To, to be part of this session, everyone is answering. Happy is leading, and then yeah, followed by Dragonite. Wow.
Last but not least.
Well, a service in your iPad automation cloud where you can train and retrain machine learning models. Hmm. This is a tricky one. I mean, initially, I think this is the only session where everyone got it correctly.
Yeah. Well done, guys.
Thank you so much for joining. Let's just take a snapshot of the winner.
Yeah.
And let's see.
Happy. Who is happy?
Happy. Who is happy? If you can share with us your name, we'll definitely uh, be like to know you. And yeah, so for everyone in the call, if you guys would like to become speakers of these sessions, or if you have a topic in mind, please feel free to reach out to me or Raj, and we'll definitely be happy to work with you on these types of events.
Yeah, it is. So especially if you are in Australia or in the ANZ region, so contact us. There are many more topics coming up. So we need speakers and who are interested to run the community sessions. So yeah, let us know and we will get organized.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Raj, for co-hosting this session.
Yeah. Thanks, Pilot.
See you next week. We also, by the way, we also have another session coming up next week.
Yeah.
Where you'll see me and Raj again on.
Yeah. We are usually the pilots and co-pilot taking the seat, shuffling the seat then and there. But yeah, we expect many of you to come forward. Yeah. So see you all next week with another interesting session. Until then, thank you very much for joining us, and yeah, have a good one. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.